This past week, Paradox sent me the latest DLC for Cities Skylines called Industries, which focuses on building up different types of businesses and stuff like that. And I was kind of thinking, here we go, 10 quid, new DLC, probably just get a couple of buildings and a new skin. I really wasn't expecting too much, but after a few hours, I was really enjoying it. And I was genuinely surprised by how much thought was put into it, how much I was getting out of it. Maybe my expectations of DLC in 2018 have just fallen so low, I don't know. Now, after a few more hours, I put in a request to get the Mass Transit DLC as well, so this video is going to be kind of a recap of my time with both of those, and I'll focus primarily on the industry stuff as that's the most recent and, in my opinion, the far better of the two. For a super quick recap on Cities Skylines, it's an excellent game. Did a video on it many years ago, and with subsequent DLCs and updates, I do think it's probably the best city builder ever. So if you're thinking about getting it, I do highly recommend it, and it's great without any DLC. You can still get plenty of playtime and have lots of content to try out, as well as an enormous modding scene to get involved in if you wanted to. But anyway, back to the Industries DLC. Industries adds a new district control that lets you create districts for large-scale industries. Then you can assign it one of 4 industry buildings, which will then determine what it's going to be. It can be either farming, forestry, or mining, or oil. So it's not quite the same as zoning industry in the traditional sense with the blocks. These are kind of separate to that. And once you've determined what your industry is, you then have raw resource buildings and advanced resource buildings. The raw ones will work with what's around you, so they'll typically deal with the map's resources such as fertile land, ore deposits, and forests. To use farms as an example, the raw resource will just produce crops. Crops will then be taken to an advanced resource area such as cattle farms or flour mills, and they'll be either turned into meat products or flour. Then the meat products and the flour can be sent to unique factories like a bakery, which will take crops, meat, and flour all together. While doing all of this, producing goods and increasing employees, your industry grows in level, allowing you to reach the next tier. The tiers provide bigger resource buildings, which provide more jobs and produce more goods. Essentially, everything just scales up, and you get modifier buildings that then help increase the efficiency on top of it. You can also store goods in warehouses as a sort of a backup in case you run into a shortage later on. If you are running low and you don't have a backup, you'll start importing what you need from outside the city, which causes huge congestion and is really expensive, essentially meaning that the industry just is not profitable. Eventually, as you build up your industry, you can start building different industries and combine the goods produced in one with the goods produced in another in a unique factory. A toy factory, for instance, needs plastics and wood, so you need both an oil industry and a forest industry to produce goods, refine them, and combine them here to make toys. These are unique factories that can only be built once, but it's a lot of fun getting the stuff where they need to go. It's almost like a mini Factorio within your city. With all the influx of these new trucks, tractors, and equipment, you'll need help moving it all. So we've got new industrial roads, we've got toll booths to charge people going down certain roads, and a new cargo airport, though I haven't used that one yet. I still rely on train terminals mostly to get my goods in and out of the city, but they also flood the streets with vehicles, so I might have to invest in it. Anyway, as well as that, there is a new mini industry called the Postal Service, which delivers mail across your city and distributes it with sorting facilities. All in all, I was just really surprised by the amount of stuff in the Industries pack. It adds a bunch of new things to do, and it adds a bunch of new problems to solve, and it fits neatly into your regular Skylines game, making use of that stuff that was already there and building upon it with new additions. What I've really liked about it though, and I didn't really expect in a DLC, is that it has that kind of leveling up minigame within it. You don't need to level up your city to level the industry up. The two are actually quite independent of each other, which I think is a much more interesting way to focus on a smaller city having a big industry. Now, I hadn't played Cities Skylines in nearly a year when I jumped back in, so part of my enjoyment here might have just been the fact that I hadn't played the game in quite a while and it's an excellent game, but I did find the new stuff pretty challenging. And for me at least, it wasn't easy to get an industry up to level 5 and have it be profitable, especially for the finite resources. So things like oil and ore, they will run out in the land around you, so you have to build up the industry at a steady pace so that you can rely on importing oil and make the money in the refineries instead. But if you build up too quickly, you can end up screwing the whole thing with massive traffic issues and run out of the resource before you scale up, which is what happened on my first run through. So like I mentioned at the beginning, I also tried out the Mass Transit DLC for the first time too, and this is one of their much more early DLCs, and this seems really helpful at making your city just run a little bit smoother. I laid down intersecting bus lanes and tram lanes every second street, which helped which, well, seemed to help people get around, especially the hub buildings where a train station would connect underground to the metro. And for a city of around 20,000, I was moving nearly 2,000 of them by metro and 400 by rail, which felt pretty good. My roads are forever blocked by commercial vehicles though, so that's just something I need to learn to avoid. Now, mass transit, while kind of fun to play around with and see trams and bus lanes and monorails giving you kind of a more dynamic and realistic city, I suppose, it just doesn't really feel worth it compared to Industries. If you were going to get one, I'd get Industries and wait for a sale maybe on the other one, or until you're really bored of the game to get mass transit. I just feel like most of the traffic solutions that mass transit will solve kind of can be solved anyway with good planning without the DLC, so that's just how I feel about it. Now, it is worth noting I never got beyond a city of around 35,000, so maybe when you start really getting huge, mass transit does come in more handy, but just for the amount of buildings and models and general gameplay that it does add, it's really nowhere near the level of Industries, in my opinion, even though it's a tiny bit cheaper. Anyways, that is it for some quick impressions on the latest DLC for Cities Skylines. The DLC also comes with a few new maps to build on, which is nice. One in particular looks pretty good with a river, and these maps are also rich in resources to exploit for your industries, which is pretty cool. And that's really it for this quick video. I hope you did like it. Do let me know if you want to see, smaller videos like this one for other games. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
The Coast Guard is warning of a tsunami approaching the area. Residents should avoid roads and waterfronts. A tsunami has struck the city. Take caution and avoid roads and waterfronts until the water recedes.